Bolivia and Paraguay lie at the heart of South America, yet they feel like blank spaces in a continent bursting with life. Together, they span more land than France, Germany, and Italy combined, but host fewer people than Greater Tokyo. Bolivia has over 1 million square kilometers of land, but most of it is wide open and startlingly silent. Paraguay? Nearly the same story. Whole provinces feel suspended in time, where towns are so distant you'd swear you'd crossed into another nation just getting to the next one. In a world obsessed with density, skyscrapers, and megacities, these two nations offer a stunning contradiction. So how did two resource-rich countries become some of the most sparsely populated zones in the Americas? Stay with me, because the answer blends extreme geography, brutal history, and 21st century economics into a single, surprising story that will change how you see the map. Bolivia and Paraguay look vast on any classroom globe because they are. Bolivia's density sits near 12 people per square kilometer, while Paraguay averages 18 people per square kilometer. Both figures hover far below the global mean of 60. Stand on a highway outside Santa Cruz, and minutes pass before a single truck rattles by. Ride the Trans-Chaco road at night, and you can drive an hour without meeting headlights. Several forces forged this demographic vacuum. Topography splits Bolivia into three sharply different worlds. The Altiplano Plateau towers above 3,600 meters. The Yungas plunge towards the Amazon basin, and the hot Gran Chaco sprawls eastward. Paraguay has its own two-part geography. The lush Oriental region clings to the Paraná River, while the western Chaco covers 60% of the country, but shelters less than 3% of its inhabitants. Transport networks struggle to bridge these extremes, and what few railways once existed have long vanished into rust. In both countries, migration became a safety valve. Millions of Bolivians left for Argentina and Spain, Paraguayans clustered in Buenos Aires. Remittances now fuel village economies, but they also hollow out entire generations. That outward drift, layered upon harsh landscapes, keeps the census needle low. Yet terrain alone never tells the whole story. To grasp why vast areas stay empty, we must climb into Bolivia's frozen rooftop, where life itself wrestles with thin air. Our trail begins at sunrise on the Altiplano, where the ground crunches like glass. Step out of a bus at El Alto Airport, 4,061 meters above sea level, and the first breath feels like sipping air through a straw. Oxygen drops below a third at this height, and winter nights plunge to -10 degrees Celsius. Large stretches of the plateau record densities under 5 people per square kilometer. Salar de Uyuni, the planet's largest salt flat, dazzles photographers with its mirrored surface, yet supports almost no permanent settlement. The plateau was once strategic for Inca runners and later for Spanish silver caravans, but railroads rusted after Potosi's mines waned. Today, a modern miner can drive for hours without passing another village. Isolation shapes everything. Public services cost more to deliver. Mobile towers run on diesel flown in, and emergency care can be half a day away. More than 2 million people crowd at La Paz and El Alto Bowl, so 1/6 of Bolivia's citizens live under 1% of its land at these heights. That imbalance leaves the plateau's open stretches almost unsettled. Yet resilience endures. Alpaca herders cluster in small aishus, cooking quinoa over llama dung fires, and Quechua women barter at windswept markets. Travelers see the limitless horizon, not the classrooms with 3 students or clinics visited by a nurse twice a month. Sometimes silence reigns so completely that a passing truck sounds like distant thunder. Follow the descending rivers eastward though, and the hush gives way to tangled jungle where a different void waits. Drop 2 vertical kilometers from the Andean rim, and clouds turn into emerald walls. Northern Bolivia's Amazonian lowlands cover 213,000 square kilometers, yet house only 500,000 residents, fewer than live in Cochabamba. Dirt tracks disappear into flood-soaked plains, where boats replace bridges for months at a time. Conservation strategy studies warn that even planned highways will still run through zones of extremely low population and high ecological value. To the south, the Bolivian slice of the Gran Chaco bakes at 45 degrees Celsius each summer. Thorny quebracho and palo santo trees provide scant shade on cracked clay. Bolivia's Chaco counties seldom reach 1 person per square kilometer. Long-distance buses rumble at night to keep engines cool, pausing at outposts where the only light comes from a generator and a glowing soda fridge. A study by the Organization of American States pegs rural density in the binational Chaco at barely 1% per square kilometer, with entire municipalities counting fewer than 600 voters. Wildlife, however, fills the vacancy nightly. Yet globalization is creeping in. Soybean fields march northward from Santa Cruz, breaking into zones where just decades ago roads didn't even exist. Mennonite colonies carve checkerboards into the scrub, and lithium exploration teams scout salt lakes on the Chaco fringe. Development promises jobs but threatens the solitude that defines this landscape. Still, the starkest emptiness lies just over the river in Paraguay, where the Chaco overturns every expectation of a modern nation. Cross the Paraguay River at sunset and streetlights vanish. The western region, universally called the Chaco, covers 60% of Paraguay, yet contains barely 3% of its 7 million citizens. That's roughly one person per football field at best. Thermometers often touch 42 degrees Celsius in December, and the humidity wraps around you like a sealed greenhouse. Most roads are gravel ribbons perched on clay embankments. During wet El Niño years, floodwaters slice the highway to Bolivia in drought. Cattle wander across asphalt seeking the last puddles. The Mennonite town of Philadelphia anchors regional supplies with 20,000 residents and a dairy plant running on its own grid. Beyond that, settlements thin out to the point where fuel stations are 200 kilometers apart, and schools even further. Even today, the Chaco is often seen less as a place to live, and more as a buffer zone, a frontier, more valuable for its emptiness than for its potential. History helped seal Chaco's destiny. In the Chaco War of 1932, soldiers marched hundreds of kilometers in heat so fierce that more died from thirst than bullets. Victory secured the land, yet settlers never came. Water lies deep underground, soils are thin, and even the hardy algarrobo grows slowly. Researchers record densities as low as 0.4 inhabitants per square kilometer across the driest districts. Despite appearing empty on human terms, the Chaco thrums with wildlife. Jaguars stalk capybaras, marsh deer patrol the reeds, and Canada's migratory birds descend on its wetlands like seasonal guests. That war didn't just redraw borders, it erased futures, setting Paraguay on a path it still hasn't escaped. The Status Desert owes part of its origin to war, but heavier blows struck earlier. To grasp them, we must revisit one of South America's bloodiest conflicts. You see, Paraguay's sparse panorama was no accident. The War of the Triple Alliance wiped out about 70% of the nation's male population and stripped away fertile borderlands. Recovery crawled. Some historians argue that the pre-war population was not regained until after 1950. Bolivia suffered its own crippling blow in 1879 when it lost its Pacific coastline to Chile, sealing a landlocked fate that raises freight costs by 30% compared with coastal neighbors. Repeated trauma delays infrastructure. When nations channel money into armies and reparations, highways and schools wait. Both countries deferred paving reliable east-west corridors until the late 20th century. Even today, around 70% of Paraguay's Chaco roads remain unpaved, and Bolivia's Amazon highway from Rurrenabaque to Guayara Marin turns to mud each rainy season. Inequality deepened the void. Latifundia, single ranches larger than some European principalities, dominate the Chaco and eastern Bolivia. A 2019 survey found that the top 1% of Bolivian landowners controlled a quarter of all arable land. Concentrated ownership means fewer payrolls and fewer villages. Many laborers migrate seasonally, returning only for soy or sugar harvests. In Paraguay, some indigenous groups like the Ayoreo remain uncontacted, while others fight legal battles over ancestral lands being sold off for soy or cattle. Land isn't just empty, it's contested. Wars also redirected migration outward. By 2025, more than 3 million Bolivians will reside abroad, mostly in Argentina, Spain, and the United States, while nearly 1 million Paraguayans will work in Buenos Aires alone. Family remittances keep local economies afloat, but drain young adults, and digital connectivity is slowly bridging the gap. The ledger of conflict and distance seems bleak, yet economic winds are shifting. Agricultural frontiers push through the forest. Dams hum on the Paraná River, and a single city in each country is exploding with growth. Bolivia's biggest twist? Santa Cruz de la Sierra. Just a dusty outpost in 1950, it now surges past 1.9 million residents. The country's new economic heart. Its rapid growth also underscores a new divide. Booming cities surrounded by rural zones, stuck in the past, too remote to catch the same economic wave. Asunción's metro population has already climbed past 3.6 million, drawing people from every corner of Paraguay. On paper, the emptiness should be shrinking. The Itaipu Binacional Dam on the Paraná produced 83.9 terawatt-hours of power last year, meeting about 80% of Paraguay's domestic electricity demand. Reality is subtler. 91% of Bolivians and 89% of Paraguayans now live in cities, leaving rural density even lower than before. Government blueprints envision megaprojects that stitch silence into networks. Bolivia's twin Amazon bridges at Rurrenabaque aim to stitch the north into national markets. Paraguay's new bioceanic corridor promises to cut soybean shipping times in half, a paved shortcut through the planet's quietest frontier. Success would multiply traffic, yet even optimistic forecasts suggest the Chaco may hold below 2 people per square kilometer by 2040. Paradoxically, emptiness itself has gained value. Eco-lodges market silent, star-laden skies, and carbon credit investors pay ranchers to conserve dry forest. Whether conservation or cultivation claims the century remains an open question. But what's your theory on why these two countries remain so underpopulated? Join the discussion below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more content that uncovers the unexpected.